Okay, Python list. So Python list is actually an entity or an object that holds multiple objects. Okay, for example, you have multiple strings. So these strings are objects, and then you have another object which holds these strings together. Okay, or if you want to change strings into numbers, it is possible as well. Maybe you want to hold, let's say if you have a variable and then it holds 10 numbers, for example, 10 integer numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So those 10 numbers can be stored or can be grouped into a single list, and then that particular list can be stored inside a variable. Okay, it can be stored inside your computer memory via a variable which is known as the list. Okay, so what is a Python list? So I'm just going to read this here. Lists are used to store multiple items in a single object. So you have many objects and then you want to store them into a group, and then you declare them under a variable, and then the type of the variable is the list. Okay, so for instance, you can store 1000 float numbers in an object created by you, say student marks. For example, in my point of view, I have to do the marking and then I have to store the marks, no? So I have to create a list which lists down the marks. Okay, so of course the list is changeable, meaning to say we can add items into the list, we can remove items from the list, and then after that you can also expand the size of the list, and yeah, it is changeable, it is modifiable. Okay, let's say if you create a list, firstly you create an empty list, and then after that you add a new item into the list, and then you add another 5 items, and so on. So well, it is changeable. So the thing is, the meaning here is direct and intuitive. So I hope you are able to get the idea. So I hope you are able to understand the meaning of changeable here. Okay, so now creating, for example, here, of course you have learned this before where I taught you on the object and class. So of course this is your variable. Okay, this is your variable marks, and then this is your class, or the type of your variable. So the type is the list. Okay, so the parentheses here are optional. Okay, you can either put the parentheses or you can either just leave it blank. Okay, so the thing is, you have to have marks equals to list. So meaning to say, you are telling the Python that you are using the variable marks and the type of the variable is a list. Okay, so here it creates and initializes a Python list. Okay, and then next, let's say if you the thing is, you want to create 5 student marks and then you want to put under a variable marks. Okay, which is a list. So you want to append a float number to marks. Okay, yeah, for example, you want to append a value 26.0. So this is a programming term here. Whenever you want to add an item to a list, into a list, the term used is append. Okay, append. So you want to append if you want to append a character into a list of characters, which is the string. So remember, I told you in the last lectures, a string is actually a list of characters. Okay, let's say my name, RABIE. So it is a list of RABIE. So that is a string. So for example, here you want to append 26. So what you do, you call your variable and then you use the dot operator here, and then you and then you type in append. And then you have your parentheses here, and then inside your parentheses, you put the mark 26.0. And then you can also continue adding more marks, okay, by writing more append 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I'm adding 26, 30, 90, 54, 40, and so on. And then finally, if you want to print the marks, so what you do is you just directly use the print function. You use the print function, and then the argument will be your marks, your variable, okay? Your mark. Here is your variable, yeah? So Python will automatically detect it as a list, and it will use its own way of printing the list. So I'll show you the example after this, yeah? So now let's move to Microsoft Visual Studio Code, okay? For example, here, of course, I hope that you already understood on using the loops, yeah? So for example, here, I want to create a list, okay? A list of numbers ranging from 1 until 100. So, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 100, yeah? Okay, so firstly, I have my variable marks, for example. No lah, we change, okay? We change this, my numbers, okay? It is a variable, and then I want to declare to Python that it is actually a list, okay? So it's up to you whether you want to use the parentheses or you don't want to use the parentheses. So it depends on you. So for example, here I'm happy to use this guy, okay? It doesn't matter actually. So it depends on your way of doing the programming, okay? It's up to you. So I want to append these numbers into my list. So here I have my variable I as an integer, so it will proceed sequentially. So because I'm using the for loop here, okay, I'm using the for loop, so it will execute multiple times. You know the loops, okay? So here my numbers dot append I, and then finally I will have to exit from my loop here, because if I press the return key, it will go to here, my cursor will go to here. Anything that is written here will remain inside the loop. So I have to reverse, I have to go outside of the loop. So by moving my caret, you know, my caret is C-A-R-E-T. Caret is your this blinking cursor. This is not a cursor actually, this is the caret, blinking caret. Not the carrot that not the carrot, not the vegetable. It's C-A-R-E-T. Okay. Okay. Now I print my list. Okay. Okay. If I press the play button, now you can see that I have created my list, which is under the name my numbers. So my numbers here is the name of my variable, and then the type of my variable is a list. So my list here contains a few numbers ranging from 1 until 99. So okay, next, this is something that I don't include in my lecture notes, but it is just for your knowledge. For example, you want to know the size of your list. So what you do is you use the len function. You can call len function directly. So because len is automatically detected by Python, okay? So you don't have to import any other libraries in order to use len. So len is the basic knowledge of Python. So Python will automatically know this len. So you put len, let's say you declare the size equals to len my numbers, and then you print the size, and then I press the play button. So here it says the size is 50. So if you count this one by one, so let's make this like until 10, make this simple, and then I change the interval. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 9 items in my list, and the items are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah 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 until 9. So that's the idea. Okay, moving back to the PowerPoint. Oops, not this one. This one, okay. So here you can imagine that your list has this kind of building blocks. So you have this single block as the memory site or the memory location. So this is where you put your number. So let's say this is your memory slots. So you have 26, 30, 90, 54, 40. So that's the idea. So you can also, instead of using marks.append here, so it's up to you. It depends on your situation and your needs. Sometimes you need to use the append. Sometimes you need to create your list instantly, or you want to create your list on the go, okay, using a single line. So for example, here we have the inline creation of your marks, okay. The reason why I call it as inline, because it is in a single line. So here you have 26, 30, 90, 54, 40. So you can also declare your list as this one. Or if you are lazy enough, you don't really want to declare the first line here, marks equals to list, it's okay. Python will automatically detect this. But to me and to most programmers, this is something that is not good. It is not a good practice, because if you do it this way, it can create confusion. No? So if the other programmers want to read your code, then they will get confused because they have to learn by themselves. Okay, what is marked? Oh, by using this definition, I can tell that marks is actually a list. So it is less readable. But if you do the first line here, if you include the first line and then you put those declarations, so this is the declaration, yeah, the first line is known as the declaration. You are declaring that a variable is of a particular type. So this is your variable of a particular type, means of here, for example, marks is a list, okay. So if you have this particular declaration, then the other programmers will be able to understand your code easily. Am I right? Okay. But again, it depends on you. It depends on your style. So I will leave this to you. Yeah. So here we have the marks equals to, and then remember to have the square brackets here, and then you also need to include the what we call this, the period sign, okay, the period. So you have to separate the elements by using the periods, okay. This is not the periods, I don't know, I can't remember. Commas, sorry, this is the commas, okay, the commas. Period is the dot sign. So I apologize for that. So you have to use the commas, comma, another comma, to separate your elements. Okay, now suppose that you have stored the values inside the memory. So here is your list. So each block is represented by using an integer, which is known as the position indices or the position index. So here the position index of the first element here is 0, and then the position index of the next element is 1, and so on. So let's say if you have 5 items under your list, so the sequence of your indices will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it will begin from 0. Okay, this is something that is also similar for other programming languages. Okay, like C#, C++, and then I'm not sure about the others. They are using the position indices that start from 0. Okay, but the thing is, in Fortran, for example, Fortran, which is the first programming language in the world. So the list begins with 1. So it depends on the programming language. Yeah. So sometimes it begins from 0, and sometimes it begins from 1. So depending on the programming language, so you have to know whether it begins from 0 or 1. But for Python, it will begin from 0. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's it. So let's say if you want to access the value, if you want to access one of the values, okay, you want to access one of the values. Here I want to access this particular block. So what I do is I have my variable here, and then I use the square brackets here. So this is my position index, the yellow color here. My position index is 1 because I want to access the element at position 1. So I do it this way, and then I use my print function to print the value. Okay, so the integer here must be enclosed in a square bracket. Okay, so let me show you some example. I'm going to show you some example here. Let's say I have saved my list. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now let's say if I have already saved my list, and then this is my numbers as my variable, which is a list, and then I want to access. The third element. For example, I use my print function, and then I call my variable name, my number, and then I'm using the square bracket. So let's say if I want to access the fourth element. So of course, if you want to access element number 4, you have to use the index which is less by 1. So the index should be less by 1. So here I want to access the element number 4, then I'm using the position index 3. Okay, so and then I print. So here I'm using the position index 3. So here if you focus over here, so I begin from 0, 1, 2, 3. So my element for the at position 3 is actually 4. Okay, I hope you understood this. Yeah, what happened if I chose a value? Let's say if I choose a value, let's say if I choose the position index which is greater than the size of the list. So let's say here we have 9 items, and then let's say if I use 9 here, what will happen? First I begin with 10 lah. Okay, so I'll begin with 10. So it will lead to error. Okay, list index out of range. So please make sure that before you access the memory, make sure that the position index is within the range. Okay, so let's say if you have 9 items, then your position index should be from 0 to 8. So remember, it should be less than 1. Am I right? It should be less by 1, not less than 1. Sorry, should be less by 1. So let's say if you have 9 items, then the maximum position index will be 9 minus 1, which is 8. Okay, let's say if I use 9 here, because here we have 9 items, then For example, if I use 9, then it will lead to error as well. So it should be less by 1. So the maximum most is 8. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so the 8th position is 9. I hope you are okay with this, yeah? Okay. Go back to our list here. So this is just some insight. So you can go through your notes and then you read this. Because, for example, which one should you use? So depending on your situation, let's say if you are creating a software that waits for the input from the user. Let's say you want to wait for the user to enter a number. Okay, for example, you want to create a program which gathers 5 numbers from the user. So you have to wait for the user pressing the enter button. Am I right? You are waiting for the user to press the enter key. So the user enters one number and then he presses the enter key, and then he provide another number and then he presses the enter key. So you have to wait sequentially. So for that reason, you are going to use the append. Okay, you have to use the append. So because you are waiting for the user to get the input. But if you are the programmer and then you already know the numbers, or you already know the items, then you can use this one. You can use this one for your declaration because you already know the numbers. So why should you use the append? You can simply write this directly. Okay. So depending on the situation. For example, here. Okay. Now, most of the time, because you are going to be trained as a computational physicist, so you are not going to create a software that deals with the user directly. But at some point, you have to use the situation here. You need to append, and append. So you will also encounter that kind of situation. But most of the time, you'll be dealing with a fixed list of numbers. Okay, for example, you are evaluating your computation and then maybe you have your own algorithm to compute a list of numbers. Then the numbers are already there, so you are not going to ask the users for the numbers, because the thing is, you are using that for yourself. You are doing the computation by yourself. You yourself is the user. Am I right? So yeah, again I repeat, yeah, so it depends on your situation. So sometimes you are going to use the append, sometimes you are going to use the inline declaration. And then I also have a special thing to share with you. For example, you can also use this kind of declaration here. Okay, it is weird, yeah. So let's say you want to create a one-dimensional list of n zeros. Okay, you want to create n zeros. So what you do is you use this syntax. So you have your numbers and then you put the equal sign here, and then you have to specify the value that you want to insert. So you want to have zeros everywhere in your list. Am I right? So you have to put 0. And then you have the loop statement here for I in range 5. So here, again, I repeat, yeah. So the range here will only repeat the loop. Okay, it will only repeat the loop. There is nothing to do with the sequence, no? As I mentioned before, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have range here. I forgot to mention this, yeah. So if you use range, you can either have 1 argument or 2 arguments or 3 arguments. So let's say if you have 3 arguments, so it remains as it is. The one that I've mentioned to you, it begins. You have the first argument as the start, and then the second argument as the stop, and then the third argument as the interval. Okay. But the thing is, if you provide only one argument, then this will be your stop value. So by default, it will automatically detect, it will automatically use 0 as the first element of your sequence. So here it will provide 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So meaning to say the number 5 here is actually the stop, but it seems to be, how to say, it seems to be equivalent to the total number of lists. Okay, so meaning to say, I don't know how to say this. So basically, you have range 5. So Python will detect that you are only giving one argument instead of 3, the one that we've used during our last lesson. Okay, we have the start, stop, and we have the interval. And then the thing is, if you provide only one argument, so Python will automatically detect this as the stop value. Okay, and then it will automatically set 0 as the first element of your sequence. So here the range here is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the total number of lists is the total the total numbers is equals to 5. So 5 here seems like the size of your element here. So you want to create 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you are not using the I here, so that's why it has nothing to do with the sequence 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, because here you are not using the I. So you are saying that it is 0 everywhere. So here 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. But the position index goes like this, yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, 5. So if you use the range 5 here, your start value will be 0, and then your stop value will be 5, but 5 will not be included, so it will be up until 4. Okay, so I is just a dummy object. You can also use I. For example, if I replace 0 here with I, then your element value will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me show you the example. Okay, let me show you the example. So for example here, okay, so now I'm using my list over here, am I right? So now what I will do is I have another type of declaration. So I have my new variable, which is my numbers 2, okay, which is a list, and then it should be 0 for I in range 5. And then I print my variable here, which is a list, and then I press the play button. So it is actually a list of zeros 5 times, yeah. So let's say if I replace it, I need you to have a look at this carefully, yeah. I know maybe you find this boring and whatsoever, so but the thing is, try to focus, okay. So let's say if I take my I here, I copy, and then I paste here. See what happened. So it will begin from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, I repeat, yeah, for your range here, if you only provide one argument, then Python will automatically detect that as your stop value. Again, I repeat, Python will automatically detect that as your stop value. And it will not include the stop value in your sequence. So meaning to say, okay, then it will automatically detect, it will automatically use 0 as your first element. So this is your first element, this is your first element, which is 0, and then it will progress from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when it reaches 5, then it will stop the sequence, but then it will not include 5. I hope you get the idea here, yeah? Okay, we go back to the PowerPoint. You can also modify your list. For example, you have set the values 1, 0, 4, 0, 3. Okay, like this. firstly, you declare that your list consists of 5 zeros, and then you want to change the value over here, here, and here. So what you do is you use the same way that you on how you access the numbers. So here you are using the numbers, and then you want to access the zeros position. So here the zeros position will be the first element because it should be less by 1, am I right? So here is 1, and then you want to modify this into 1. So it will automatically change from 0 here, and then it will change into 1. Same goes to this one, same goes to this one. So you modify the fifth element. So here you are using the position index, which is less by 1. So which is 5 minus 1, so it is 4. And then you change this into 3. So you are changing 0 here into 3. So that's how you modify the element. Okay, that's the idea. And then now you are creating, let's say if you want to create a two-dimensional list of m by n zeros. So what you do, you just use the same idea. So 0 for j in range 3, and then you copy and paste another guy here. I don't know how to tell you. It's like a nested thing. You can also have a three-dimensional list where you replace the 0 here with something similar, which is 0 for maybe k in range 3. Change it like that. So, and then if you want to specify the value of the elements, so this is the two-dimensional list. So if you want to access the position, if you want to access the value of a two-dimensional list, if you want to access one of the values of a two-dimensional list, then you have to use the double brackets here. So for example here, we have numbers, and then you have the double square brackets. So the number is 3, and then you have the square bracket here, and then you have another square bracket, which is for the second element here. So here you are accessing 3. So it will go, firstly, it will go from your row. Okay. So this is a list. If you go across the row, okay, this is one list, and then this is another list, and then this is another list, another list. It is a list of lists. So first you access the row. Okay. So for example here I'm accessing 3. So 0. So the first row is represented by using the index 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you access element at position 2. So you begin from 0, 1, 2. So here the value of numbers 3, 2 is 1. So for numbers 4, 2, it will go from 0, 1. Firstly we go by rows. Yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you are using 4, am I right? And then you have 2 as the second index. So 0, 1, 2. So 0, 1, and 2. So here, the position here is 5. Okay, and then if you want to change this into 5, so you use the same idea. You just use the square brackets, okay? And then you modify the value by using the equal sign here. So that's all for the list. So for example here, let me show you an example. Yeah, VS Code. Okay, now I want to declare a two-dimensional list. Maybe I want to have, let's say I want to create let's say if I want to create a matrix that looks like this. Let me show you. Yeah, so I want to create a matrix. So 1, 2, 3. And then 0, 0, 0. And then another one, which is 1, 1, 2. So I have a 3 by 3 matrix. So I want to declare the matrix here. So what you do is, maybe first you initialize everything into 0. So here I have 3. The size of my row is 3, and then the size of my columns is 3 as well. So I want to change this into 3, and then I cut everything. Okay, I press the Control X. Okay, cut, okay, cut, and then I write another one. So this will be my dummy value for j in range 3. So this will be my column. Okay, this is this will iterate over my rows. So my row will be, and then I Control V, I paste. Okay, so it's over here. I repeat. Here I'm highlighting an element. The element itself is a list. Okay, so I'm highlighting the element, and then I repeat the element for j in range 3. So I repeat. I don't know how to say this. So it's a nested declaration. So let's say if I print my numbers 2. Let's see. So here I have my first row and my second row. Everything is 0. Okay, and then next I change the element one by one. So my first element here is 1. So the position is 0, 0. This is the first row. This is the first row, and the index is 0, which is less by 1. And then it is the first element of the list. So I change this into this, my numbers 2, and then 0, 0 is equals to 1. And then I change the second element over here. So basically I just copy here and paste, and then 0 and 1 equals to 2, and then 0 and 2 equals to 3. And then I have my second row as a list of zeros, so I just leave it as it is, because I have already declared the zeros here. And then I simply jump to my third row, and then the index of my third row should be less by 1, which is 2. 2, 0 is equals to 1. 2, oops, 1 is equal to 1. Then I paste everything, and then my last element will be 2, which equals to 2. And then I print my numbers. Okay, so now I have modified my list. So here, maybe you want to change this into a matrix. So this is something new. Okay, listen to me carefully. Yeah. So first I have to use numpy. Import numpy as np. And then I have already constructed my list, and then I want to convert my list into a matrix. So then I declare maybe matrix A is numpy.matrix, and then I simply replace this guy. I put my variable here, the 2-dimensional list, then I paste inside this guy. Then if I print this, then it will appear beautiful. Okay, here is beautiful. So instead of having your list, a 2-dimensional list here, which is less readable, you convert that into a matrix, then it will appear this way. 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, which is something equals to this. So I think that's all for today. So maybe I'll cover the matrix on Friday. I mean the details. There's not much items to learn for the matrix. This is something that you have learned before. So you have a matrix, and then yeah, let me show you first. So this is something that you have learned before. Okay, I'll proceed the matrix topic on Friday. So we only have 14 slides. So yeah, I'll go through this one by one on Friday, but it is something simple. Huh? You just need to remember on how to use the matrix multiplication and so on. This is the transpose. Okay, so we'll go through together on Friday. So this is the matrix multiplication. Okay, you have to use the @ sign. Okay,